say that I was coming up here to sing, but that would require me to actually be able to sing, which I can't. It took 2 years of singing lessons only to prove that I cannot sing. So I'm going to do some spoken word. I haven't done spoken word in a while. Actually grew up in Nebraska, and so I'm a native to Traverse City, but I spent the last few years in Chicago, and now I'm back in TC for a while, and I'm going to kind of give you guys sort of where I'm at, and we'll see what you guys think. So, I've let people tag me, and we're not talking Facebook or Twitter here. Real life, tags and definitions that describe an aspect of something that I have done, or a way in which they've labeled their own perspective on me, my life, my choices, my accomplishments, and my failures. My dad calls me Princess. I'm also a sister to this guy over here with the matching hoodie. I'm a dancer. My high school knew me as the valedictorian, Miss Kilpaska, Christian, privileged. One woman also knew me as a cutter. She would never label me that though. Instead, she was proud of me as I earned my label as a Michigan State graduate. Gay, lesbian, master's student, runner, teacher, choreographer, writer, criminal. She stuck with me with that label too. I lived by these labels. Some of them I was proud of, others destroyed me. Anything less than an A- on a paper was not acceptable. It wasn't within the label of top of the class. Anything slower than full speed ahead was lazy or lame. I was on top of the world. I was in control of everything. I worked 3 jobs. I moved to a big city. I was earning my label as a city girl, a marathon runner, a therapist, an artist, and now, what label do they give me now? Anorexic. I spent minutes, hours, days, and weeks looking at labels. Not only my own, but labels on everything else around me. Memorizing, criticizing the numbers and the content until I started metastasizing in my skewed perception on everything in life. Too little, too much. I judged every bite and fudged every right to take pleasure in anything. Everything had a weight, but me. I didn't even weigh enough to be registered as an adult in a car. The seatbelt light didn't come on, which meant that I was no more than a grocery bag, a purse, a box. I didn't need a seatbelt. I didn't need protection. I wasn't enough to be worth protecting. I wouldn't have argued that. I was dying. The doctor said my heart still reacted fine, even though they couldn't find a pulse with 3 electronic readers. My heartbeat was so slow that they didn't know where I should go, just that I needed to grow. But I didn't feel like a human. I didn't give myself enough, yet everything was too much, and now I wasn't even enough. Enough to need a seatbelt, enough to have heartbeat, enough to have anything. I couldn't exercise enough to make my body tired enough to actually go to sleep at night. Instead, I lay awake all night in a zombie state, my fate lying ahead, and feeling like I'm dying, and thinking I'm not enough to be loved. For the last year, I've dealt with people looking at me and then looking away. Or looking with worry, wondering, do I eat? Looking at every morsel I place in my mouth and thinking that it wasn't enough, and that I, at the same time, was probably counting and scared that it was too much because I didn't think I deserved it. Purge it, run it off, shake it off, take off this label. I actually had a woman who was emotionally, physically, and mentally unstable. She was living in the behavioral health unit of the hospital that I worked at in Chicago. She looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Do you eat?" I said, "I do." I lied to her face. That day, I lived the label, anorexic. What if instead, we all gave ourselves the label of loved? Not loved by anyone in particular, not waiting around for that label to be handed out on a ceramic plate with the little doilies and the flowers that you see in your grandmother's cupboard that you're not allowed to touch, only on a special occasion or for a special event or holiday. Not handed out by your parents or your pastor or your boss or your personal trainer or your friends or even your spouse or your child. Not a label of loved, attached to accomplishment, satisfaction, achievement, gratitude, relation, obligation, sensation, or inspiration, but a label of love that you define yourself by. Loved for being alive, loved for living with honesty, loved for making mistakes and breaks and taking risks that leave you face down in the dirt, kicking and screaming and saying, I love my life, with all the sarcasm and cynicism you can muster in your voice, because it was your choice to run and trip and fall, and it's your choice to assign no shame, no blame to yourself or the world around you, but instead take a stand. Take a stand. Not take a pill or take a drink or a downer or an upper with your supper as you squeeze tears out of your eyes, your dirty eyes, from crying in pity of your circumstances. Stop taking handouts of loved and take a stand. Hand yourself the label of love for living and trying and refusing to mask your fear and brush it aside. Take a stand, astride with pride and devotion to the motion your heart makes as it beats faster and faster, because disaster is approaching when you realize that you're only one in a billion on this planet trying to get through the day in your own way. But that's just it. You're one in a billion. You are not defined by what you've achieved. The tally of good deeds and charity donations you submit for your taxes don't mean anything to your neighbor if you're too busy to lend a hand when they're shoveling snow. And really, those extra dollars you claim that you smile at with conceit probably are spent on Cottonelle or Kleenex to wipe the tears from you feeling lonely and disconnected. What matters is you. When you fall asleep, do you count your sheep, your deeds, your dollars, or do you sigh with a high from not being one of the billion who walked by, the old man, and not lending a hand? One of the billion who didn't feel like enough to give up some of their time for another. No, you felt so overwhelmed with love and joy and delight in this life that you saw a crown and couldn't help but be the one in a billion who did kneel down into the wet, cold northern Michigan snow to lift someone up who has been waiting for a handout of a label of love. You didn't hand out a label, but you held out your hand because you know you're loved, because you love yourself. Because the way you regard who you inherently are is inflexible. Whether you bend or break, are gay, lesbian, bi, or straight, if you blow the interview or suck it up hard, when you've conquered the hill and then taken a spill, when you've disappointed the world, gotten sick of dealing and hurled and then swallowed down whole all the pain in your soul and stood proud to be seen for the man so obscene in his scheme to create a circle of friends who to no end will support the dumb ideas and smart decisions and share their provisions even when they're starving and carving their hearts out of splintered wood, and you feel you should keep yourself from passion, pleasure, bliss, joy because of the shame, guilt, power, and control. You feel you should keep yourself from food because you don't deserve it. Your body doesn't deserve it. You deserve you. Stop killing yourself, and you'll find that those who are kind to themselves are the kind of people who label themselves loved and think you deserve the world. It's a label I'm no longer afraid to have or afraid to see. Give me some glue. I'm putting the label of loved on me.